Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, October the 26th, 2018. It's 8 a.m. New York time, and this is your first daily dose of happy for the day. And we want to thank you for joining us. Once again, we are live streaming as well as recording the podcast and broadcasting live with the podcast. We're live streaming on Facebook in the Law of Attraction Change My Life group. And if you're happening to be passing by that group and tuning in today, we welcome you and thank you for watching and listening and enjoying the fact that Tom and I are actually, believe it or not, seeing each other for the first time today. So this is a seminal moment.
This is
we've
great. Been talking to each other for 13 months longer than that. About a year on the phone.
About a year, yeah.
Close to a year, yeah.
So it's like I know you. It's just I had no idea what you look like when I talked to you.
Yeah. But now that I see what you look like, I don't want to know you anymore. No.
Oh no!
That's really that's a terrible thing to say. That's not true at all. It's actually now I realize you're a lot younger than I thought you were. You know.
Oh well.
You're
thank
like
you.
Barely 60 years. I'm not sure older.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Tom. But no, this is great. I'm looking forward to continuing these live streams, and we're going to right now the platform we're using, the Zoom platform, has a few restrictions that make it a little bit tricky for bringing somebody up, from the audience. But that's a goal, is to get to the point where we can invite somebody from, say, the Facebook group who wants to come in and maybe interact with us, share some insights or some ideas or ask questions or whatever.
How many people can you have on at once? How many other people?
Well, you can do, I think with the Zoom platform you can do up to 100 people, but you have to invite them, and that's what makes it tricky. They have to get special invitations. And it's like, no, guys, come on, get with the program. We got to be able to just bring them up. Somebody wants to come in, okay, click the button, they're on. It's got to be like that. But Zoom hasn't figured that part out.
Seems like you'd have to have just one at a time. Otherwise, it could get a little much.
Well, I mean, it's not like we bring up one person, we interact with them, and then we put them back and bring up another person. You can just keep that going. Yeah. You just have to have the ability to do it. That's the problem. Instead of having to send out an email each time, hey, would you like to come on the program? No, it's got to be much simpler than that.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, how you doing? We haven't talked in a week, but anything happened?
Yeah. Oh, anything happened? Well, my entire life.
Well, that's good.
It's just massive, the amount of constant change going on these days, because I'm working with feelings, and feelings are the thing that drive existence, it seems like, because as we say in the law of attraction, they are our guidance system. And,
that's right.
And if we're not noticing what we're actually feeling, then I wonder what we're listening to. Sometimes thoughts are really the thing that seem to guide me in directions that I don't really want to go. Whereas feelings I can count on, but feelings are sometimes difficult, and so we run away from them towards trying to make everything okay. But that's why today's program is about witnessing feelings and how to be in the position that you get into when you go into meditation, which is, your thoughts seem to take a backseat to this great feeling that's arising in you of this just inner knowing and this inner warmth, this inner feeling of how good it feels to be alive, you might say, because you're just witnessing yourself. You're sitting there in your meditation cushion or in your couch or somewhere, and you're not worrying, right? You're not worrying about what's coming next. You're just observing as things come up. And it's that great place of watching contrast, as Abraham calls it, step 5, right, where you're able to be in contrast, but you're not of it. You're in the world, but not of it. You're not not so worried about what's coming next. You're trusting.
I had some personal insight this week talking with Cindy Chavez in one of our podcasts, in which she mentioned something. I don't even remember what she said, to be perfectly honest. But the gist of it that I got was, you can only feel now. You can't feel tomorrow. You can't feel yesterday. You can only feel now, which makes total sense. I mean, everything we've ever talked about being in the now, well, of course, you're only going to feel now. But for some reason, it clicked in a particularly special way for me, because I realized if you're having trouble connecting to the feeling, it means you're not connecting now. You're connecting in the future or in the past. So anytime that I have found myself, I'm saying to myself, I'm not feeling anything, most likely it means that my focus wasn't on now. Most
Yeah.
likely it was on the future, sometimes in the past, depending on what it is I'm dealing with. And I never really thought about it that way, but that's actually a fairly powerful thing to know. Because now I know, okay, if I'm getting the feeling, especially if I'm looking for a good feeling, and it's actually arriving, I know I'm focused right here. I'm not trapped in what's coming down the road. I'm not getting tripped up by that. And the only tricky part here is you mentioned the role of observing your own feelings. When you're involved in your feelings, then you're not quite so much an observer. An observer actually is kind of detached, kind of distant. So when you're observing your feelings, is it really possible to observe your feelings in the present? I'm not sure about that. What do you think?
Yes, I think it is. I think we become better and better at it as we cultivate meditation, you might say. You cultivate this place of being the witness, and yet it's almost like you think of Eastern religions and things and Eastern spiritual practices. That's a lot what they're all about, is getting to the place where instead of you being the victim of your own self, of your own feelings, you're witnessing as these things are coming up, but you're in this detached position. Excuse me. And that's the position of source, you might say. It's the position of your higher self. And how can we more and more be in the position of our higher self and less in this position of this, you could call it your lower self.
The lower self.
Well, in some traditions, they call it that. I just started thinking of that concept because I was reading about it the other day and thinking, do I believe in the difference between the higher and the lower self? And it's just a way, I guess, of speaking of it. But whether or not there's this way to be detached, excuse me, but it's 6 a.m. here, and I'm just getting
the
my
throat
voice
hasn't cleared out for the day.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's eating too many candy bars or
Always possible.
So,
but the thing about observing, because when you're observing your feelings, can you also be feeling them at the same time? Can you be both the observer and the feeler?
Yes.
Can you do both?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about that because we have a perspective, and it strikes me that in order to observe, you have to have the perspective of observation.
Yeah.
Which
but
means
if you
you're not really in that feeling at the same moment that you're observing, I would think.
Well, if you think of source, I've heard this spoken of so many times through the Abraham stuff, is source is always observing. And, they even talk about how source is looking at the situation differently than you are. And, well, what's the difference between you and source? That's where I'm not sure. That's the higher self. My higher self is connected totally to source. So if there's a part of me that's always connected to that is that, then there's a part of me that's always observing from a place of total knowing or totally being okay with my life as it is. It's witnessing it. Like if you were leaving your body, you would hope to be in that place, right? Where you're watching as you're leaving your body. You're not like freaking out, and so could we be in that place all the time? Could we be in that place where we see that feelings are coming up, but it's sort of like, in everything in the universe, there's both ends of the stick. There's both the positive and the negative, you could say. There's, both ends of the stick. So it's whether or not you're able to pick up the stick. That's step 5 of law of attraction. Can you be in any experience as it comes up, and no matter what is happening, you can step back into the position of witnessing. You have that option, but it's something we cultivate. It's not something that the second you're in a bad feeling that's bumming you out, that you I'm going to be the witness of this, and you step into the witness position. But theoretically, and I believe realistically, you can get to that place where you just don't attach a great big story to it. You don't attach the drama to it. You don't attach the fear to it, the angst to it. It's something that we can cultivate. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think we want to do meditation.
It's interesting because I think there's also there are two aspects to this. And the two aspects are, is it a good feeling or is it a feeling we don't like? If
Right.
it's a good feeling,
Exactly.
if it's a good feeling, we actually, I think, want to be in the feeling. I don't think we want to be observing the feeling.
Right.
That would actually be disappointing.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I know what you're saying, yeah. But boy, I've had so many experiences. I've been meditating for 47 years, and I really feel like when I get in that position of the detached place of the witness, I feel so good that there's no better feeling I've ever had. I mean, it's hard to say that because when you're super joyous and you're hanging out with a bunch of friends and having a wonderful dinner and you're laughing your head off, you can't at that time evaluate, is it better? Would I rather be meditating right now? Is the feeling I have in meditation better than this? I don't make those comparisons, but yeah, when I'm feeling bad, then it's like I just want out of that feeling no matter what.
Yeah.
And yet that feeling is something that if we run from it, if we flee from it, if we repress it, then we don't know what it's trying to tell us. We immediately jump into our mind. See, this whole thing to me comes down, are you living in your mind or are you living in your heart?
Mm-hmm.
And cultivating living in our heart means to me, I'm less and less in the story and trying to change things with the story I'm talking about everything. And I'm just letting myself feel what's happening and then being detached from it to the degree that I can say, okay, right now I'm noticing that I'm feeling some resentment. Right now I notice I'm feeling some anger, but I'm not needing to fully engage with it. I can notice that I'm feeling it, and then I don't have to attach a great big story to it. And maybe I have to vent it to a little bit, but I don't necessarily have to vent it on the other person because I can be detached from it.
That's the advantage to being detached, or at least being the observer. That it's easier to release emotions you don't want to have to keep living in, and there's value in both understanding those emotions and kind of living with them long enough to get whatever the messages are and so forth. And there's also the advantage of being able to detach because okay, I'm done with that. I can move on now. Go away. You want both.
And I think we evolve. I mean, it takes the pressure off the feeling being always a drama that we have to try to find as many Band-Aids as we can to patch up our sense of that we're wounded. But eventually we don't have that feeling. We become less and less impacted by our fears and our angers and our sadness. They don't overwhelm us and devastate us. When you think of somebody who's really in and out of a mental hospital, it's a person who is taking their feelings so seriously that no matter what comes up, it just sweeps them down the river. They feel overwhelmed and they don't know what to do next, and they're just caught in this incredibly horrible place. And yet, if you teach that same person to learn how to detach from that stuff and how to find inner peace through meditation, then they more and more, when those feelings show up, they don't take them as seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're developing this. It's their higher self is coming more into who they really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and we know that that when our feelings are on the negative side, when the stuff we don't like, that's not comfortable to us, we know from Abraham's teaching, for instance, that means that our inner self and our physical self aren't in agreement about what's going on. We're looking at it from perspectives that are inconsistent with each other. Whereas if it's something that we're liking, that we're enjoying the feeling of, then our physical self and our inner being self are in agreement. We have the same, very similar perspective. We're feeling very much the same way about it. And that's why I say that to me is the differentiator, because when I'm feeling a good feeling, I don't want to sit back and observe it. I want to be in it. Because that's the whole thing. I mean, to me, that's why we have good feelings at all. That's why we're here to experience good feelings, so that we can enjoy them, so that we can say, hey, this feels good. I want more of this. So keep it coming, And we want our experiences to match that. We want our experiences to be as much related to the good feeling stuff as it can be. So for me, actually, I have never had much trouble detaching or observing. My biggest problem has been getting into the moment. I'm getting better and better at it, and I'm doing it more and more frequently. But I was an observer for so much of my life that I got sick of it, to be honest. And I can see how it's a useful tool to have, especially if you're dealing with something that feels really negative and that's a big attachment issue for you. I can see where the observer role is really, really helpful for that because I've lived that. I know what that's like. But I also know the flip side, which is if you become so good at being the observer, you can actually forget to live. And living is where it is at. So I mean, we use the meditation and so forth.
Yeah.
We have these tools. It's good to have the tools. It's good to learn how to do this kind of thing so that we can get perspective back and so forth. But ultimately, it's about living. It's about loving life. And that's really where I want to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like in the Buddhist, I think it's the Buddhist tradition of the Bodhisattva. Are you familiar with that?
Not really. I know the name, and I think I read it one time, but I mean, that
well,
was
it basically
30 years ago.
it impressed me a lot when I was in my 20s and I first heard about it, because it means a person who retires, you might say, to a cave in the Himalayan mountains, and they do nothing but meditate for years and years until they are God realized. They become an enlightened being. But then what they do, this big practice in Buddhism, I guess, is you then leave the cave, you go back to the city you were from, back to society, and you become a bodhisattva, who is one who then brings that enlightenment to daily life. And I think that in a way that's what we're talking about here, is how can we be in our daily lives and not be walking around as a victim of ourselves or other people, who's constantly at the effect of drama, who's living in their mental story so much that they can't detach and witness things. So, you can witness your joy, but you're in it. You're completely enjoying the heck out of your joy, but you're also aware, I am friggin' happy. I love my life. I love this music. I love this party. I love these people. I love whatever you're doing. Can you be in that place? But in a way, part of you is not so invested in it that you think that your happiness hinges on constantly staying happy. You're able to flow. So if something comes along, you're having a conversation with somebody and they're saying something that you just don't agree with, and you're starting to feel bummed out, you can recognize that and then witness that. Wow, I'm starting to feel kind of angry inside at what this person's saying. But you don't necessarily have to then go into your mind and create a drama or a story or a judgment about the whole thing. You can say, I'm feeling that, and that's inside me. It's not necessarily them that's making me feel that way. I'm not the victim of them.
No.
And I'm not a victim of some trend I have to always get angry necessarily. But I'm feeling it, and then sometimes it's the most helpful thing to tell the other person, wow, when you said that, I started feeling really angry. Like in relationships, when you're with your spouse, you can say, instead of having to say, you make me so angry when you do thus and thus and thus, you say, oh, I'm feeling really angry right now. And of course, you might not say it that way. But
you probably would say, I'm really so angry right now.
but you're less likely then to go off on them and turn it into this whole scene.
Yeah.
If you're kind of witnessing the fact that.
Oh yeah, that perspective definitely helps a lot. By the way, I want to acknowledge too. I was looking at the Facebook group and seeing we got some likes and so forth, and we have a wave from one of our co-hosts, Anne-Marie McEwen, is waving to us, so she's tuning in today. So hello, Anne-Marie, how you doing?
Hi, Anne-Marie.
But the perspective of perspective. I don't know how else to say that. The ability to achieve perspective, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is a really valuable one. I don't mean to minimize that, because I have found it to be really valuable in my life to be able to do that. But I also want to recognize that there's both sides to it. It isn't just about the perspective; it's also about the living in it, and it's basically about being able to choose which are you going to be for this moment in time. Are you going to live in the thing, or are you going to go into the perspective mode so you can adjust and evaluate and decide where you're at and where you want to be at, and what it's going to take to be where you want to be at? And that I think is what a deliberate creator does. A deliberate creator knows when he or she needs to take a step back, or when he or she needs to get into the flow again, so to speak, to get into the emotional flow. Because both are positions of power, really. And it's really about learning how to use that power to our advantage, to do and accomplish and be what we want to be in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I used to say, that my main prerequisite was which direction feels better, which feels more like fun, which feels more easy.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying that, but if that causes me to deny something that's coming up as a feeling, I don't want to always just use my mind to convince myself to only go in the direction of what feels good. I want to say, well, if the feeling's coming up, I want to acknowledge it because it has a message for me. It's my guidance system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I need to be this witnesser, to be able to not always be thrown, to and fro by my feelings, by just thinking I guess today it's the thing that's coming up for me so much is this: am I a victim of my own feelings, or am I somehow detaching, witnessing them, and realizing I have a higher self, I have a source self that doesn't have to feel at the mercy of these feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They are there to guide me. They aren't necessarily there to punish me. They aren't there because I did something, because I'm so confused that I'm trapped in bad feelings. It's like, no, the feelings they're not big monsters. They're something that can help me.
Mm-hmm.
But I only really know that if I'm cultivating this position of witnessing, so that when they come up, I don't take them so seriously that I think they mean that I'm extremely lonely or I'm extremely crazy because I'm so sad, or extremely, the judgments that we make of ourselves, because of the things that come up.
Yeah, we're world-class judges, aren't we? We're really good at just beating ourselves up.
Or somebody else.
Or somebody else, either way, yeah.
I think that it's so easy to project onto somebody else the cause of my bad feelings, and say, well, I can't be around her because she does this and does that, but where's the reaction happening? It's happening in me. So this is my stuff.
That's right.
And then I'd go, oh, well, if that's my stuff, what's that about? What's it trying to tell me? And it's almost like, are we always just expanding? Is everything just about our ability to grow as spiritual beings? I mean, that's what it seems like it's about on some level.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean,
So
isn't expansion about growth? Isn't growth about expansion? I mean,
right.
we're contributing to our own expansion with everything that we go through and everything that we experience and how we react to it and how we decide to look at it and understand it and perceive it and then decide what we want to do with it. That's all part of growth process. It's all part of expansion.
Yeah. And it's because it comes down to the question, like, well, what is it that I'm wanting to be in this moment? What is it I want my life to be? What is it that I'm doing here on this planet, in this reality, this 3D reality? I mean, it seems like it's fraught with difficulty sometimes, like, why is there so much difficulty? This is what I go through anyway. But then it seems like it must all be for a spiritually divine reason, for something noble, for something magnificent must be behind it all. Something marvelous, because this universe is too beautiful to not feel like everything that's happening doesn't have a silver lining, doesn't have some beauty that's there somehow.
It is there. It's always there.
Yeah. But you look at you watch the news or something and you go, where's the beauty? Why but it's sort of like that's the person who's free falling out of the airplane and they realize they don't have their parachute and they go, where's the beauty in this? It's like, well, enjoy the ride down,
Pretty much, yeah.
Because sometimes that's how I feel, it's like I'm not enjoying the feeling that I'm having. It just doesn't feel that good. But if I can detach from it, I always wonder what it would be like if I was falling 10,000 feet through the air, like how much could I enjoy it? if I knew
Well,
what the ending was.
it depends on what you're anticipating, I guess. If you're
Well,
anticipating
or
a
whether or
soft
not
landing, then you probably feel good if you have a parachute on your back. If you don't
no,
have
but
a
I mean, if you
parachute,
know it's going to be, if you know it's probably going to be a hard landing, but you know that that doesn't necessarily have to be painful. The landing, even without the parachute, it might be some kind of transcendental experience you're going to have when you hit the ground. I don't know why I'm going
well,
into all this. Getting kind of
yeah, it would be
philosophical.
what transcendental. It would be transferring. Personally, I'm not really ready to dive out of a plane without a parachute, but I suppose if one wants to do that, they've already figured out what's going to happen. It's not like it's a mystery. It's not like they're surprised. Oh, on the way down, oh, geez, I forgot my parachute.
I'm just saying, sometimes don't we feel like that? Like when things are
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
things are going really difficult, that we feel like,
And I think that's
dang,
what you're alluding to, that when we are feeling like that, what we're really feeling is out of control. We're feeling like life has gotten away from us. And we're caught in this web of horribleness that we're dealing with right now, and it's never ending. And I agree with you. That is exactly an indication that it's time to take a step back. That's the time to take the observer mode, and
yeah,
and say to yourself, okay, well, this is where it's all going. I can tell where it's all going. I can't really, at this point in time, stop where it's going. So what's my response to it going to be? I mean, I could do the old panic thing. When in peril or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. I could do that.
never
Or
heard that
I
one
could
before.
decide, well, okay, well, I'm already here. This is already happening. What can I do to get the most out of it? I can do that. Or I can say, you know what? I'm not going to watch this. I'm going to close my eyes. Okay. So now I don't see it anymore. I can do that. There are a lot of things I can choose to do, I personally have never really enjoyed, what do they call those? The extreme scenarios where you're falling out of a plane without a parachute, you're going to hit the ground, that kind of thing. They're extreme scenarios, and there's a term for that, and I don't remember what it is philosophically. But edge cases, something like that. I've never liked those kinds of cases. I've never liked studying that stuff. I know why people like to study it, because they feel like that they're narrowing it down to a very controlled set of variables so that they have a better understanding of whatever information they're able to glean from it. But personally, I don't find those kinds of examples to be helpful. I think it's much more helpful to be looking at the more mundane stuff, the stuff that happens every single day. Because I think I get a lot more out of studying that than I get out of the edge cases. The edge cases are always about what we would do in a rare situation. But when we're feeling stuff that's hard, it's not a rare situation. It's a common situation. Mm-hmm. It's not like if we're a rare situation, people would almost never have that, right? we would never have these emotional stances where, oh, geez, I feel so trapped and so forth. But it's not rare. It's about as common as can be. Like you said, look at the news. You could just see all the angst being created everywhere in the world all at the same time. This is not a rare phenomenon. This is pretty common. So it's not an edge case. And if it's not an edge case, that means, well, we should stop treating it like an edge case. We should start treating it like a common case. And this is where I think your approach makes some real sense, because if we're commonly experiencing stuff that feels bad to us, stuff that we don't like, stuff that we don't want, that is the time to take a step back and say, well, gee, am I going to continue to let that thing dominate me, or am I going to decide to change my perspective so that I regain my control over my life that I want? And that's really what you're arguing for. You're saying, I don't want this thing to dominate me anymore. I want the control back.
Yep. Good. So you got it.
There it is. So we're done. Okay. Well, actually, let's take a break here, because I want to make sure I get the messages and the promos that we do every day. First one being, if you have not yet become a subscriber to the podcast, please do so. Even if you're listening to us on the live stream in the Facebook group that we're live streaming to today. We don't always live stream here. We will be for the next week or two, but there's going to be times when we're not live streaming to the group, and you don't want to miss any of the episodes. And if you've been listening to the shows this week, you've seen, I have so many different co-hosts with so many different cool perspectives, and you don't want to miss any of them, because they bring me all kinds of useful knowledge and information and experiences. and they'll bring the same thing to you. Plus, we have a lot of really funny people now, too, so it makes it even more fun. But make sure you subscribe. It's really easy to do. Just go through your podcast software and do a search for LOA Today, and we'll pop right up. If you're not really sure how to do that, we've got instructions on our homepage at loatoday.net. And if you're listening in the Facebook group, I've also put links in the group there in the description for this particular live stream post that you can click on that will set you up with either an Apple type phone or an Android type phone. And you can get all the stuff live streamed right to your phone. And once you're a subscriber, and for all of our existing subscribers, please keep putting out there on your favorite social media channels that you're listening, because it's really making a big difference, and we want to reach millions of people in the long run. Certainly, we want to get up into the thousands and tens of thousands for every episode and keep growing from there. And you putting the message out that you have been listening and watching loatoday.net really, really helps. So please keep putting the messages out, and we really appreciate your help and participation and helping other people get their daily dose of happy, because, Tom, that's what it's all about. It's getting that daily dose of happy, right?
It certainly is a nice thing to have happiness every day.
Oh, we need it. We need it.
In every way possible.
It's a way of sharing energy. I was thinking about that this morning as I woke up, how I think each of us has perhaps different things to work on. Some of us need to work more on being able to send energy, send love, and so forth. Others of us need to be able to practice more receiving the energy, receiving it and accepting in the love. Some of us need to work on both, but we all need some degree of that to work on. And getting a daily dose of happy is a way that we send the love out to people. And when people receive it and send it back to us, it just becomes this swirling pool of powerful, positive energy. And I think you probably feel it like I do. As time is going on, I've got the feeling of all this energy from all the people who are listening to our podcasts and our video streaming just coming to me. I don't even know how to describe what it feels like. It's not like touching something, or it's not like feeling an emotion. It's just this. It's almost like this. It's like living in a pool of energy. I don't know how else to describe. Does that make any sense? Living in a pool of energy. Does that have a feeling to it?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because when in the coaching that I'm doing, this new coaching I'm training in, which is to take people into an alpha meditation state, so that they can experience their feelings or any sensation in their body, but also any feelings that emerge. And it's the key to being a good coach of this is your ability to presence another person. Mm. And so the other day we were practicing in the class to presence from the moment you begin speaking with somebody. Mm. And it's something that you can literally decide that you want to be in this place of inner witnessing. Really, it's the place of inner awareness, inner detachment, but inner love. There's a love that comes from presencing somebody else. You just like that whole thing when two or more are gathered. See in the Bible. When two or more are gathered in His name, there I am amongst you. Mm-hmm. And I always love that thing not because I'm a big Jesus adherent. I love Jesus as much as I love Buddha and all those guys. But it's a feeling of just what do you call it? It's a presence of love that comes up when we have that intention to bring that to our conversations and when we have the intention to be in that place ourselves.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say is that you're noticing it on a feeling level. Somehow you're picking up how much support you have, how much people are feeding you appreciation, you might say, and love. And that's really cool that you're able to talk about it.
I certainly feel it more when we get like a contact from a listener, an email, or they use the contact form, or they tweet something or post something on Facebook or whatever. That's easy to tap into. But it's also fun to kind of build my ability over time to sense it more. We lack verbs for certain things. Have you ever noticed that? There are certain things we lack verbs for.
In our culture, we lack verbs and nouns.
And nouns, yeah.
I mean, they say that if you look at the history even of the English language, the amount of verbs and nouns and adjectives that were being used even 100 years ago and definitely 200 years ago. And then you go back further and further, it's been diminishing a lot over those years.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading this book written in right after the Civil War. This guy went to become a surveyor in Siberia because they wanted all of Siberia to be surveyed so they could set up a telegraph line. And so he wrote this amazing book called Tent Life in Siberia, which is this really great book to read because you see what it was like in Siberia in 1865 or 1870, whenever it was.
Mm.
And but I noticed reading that book, I had to have a dictionary with me almost all the time because he used so many words that I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
But he was like a journalist of his time. And so I'm thinking, wow, things have changed a lot. And that was just 100 years ago, or more, 150 years ago.
That's true. By the way, I got to point out, we have another listener listening to us live on the Facebook stream. Deborah is waving at us. So, hi, Deborah. Thank you for tuning in. We love that you joined us today. I can feel your energy. I really can. So, thank you very much.
You're sensitive. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, well, I'm feeling excitement. When we're doing the podcast, I have always felt an excitement level doing that. Lately, it's been getting bigger, so I figured that's what I'm feeling. I don't think, well, perhaps my enthusiasm is getting bigger, but I don't think that's what it is. I think I'm just feeling more about what I'm getting from our listeners. That's what I'm getting from the people who are participating by listening in and agreeing or saying, oh, no, I disagree, or whatever it is. But I feel it. I feel the energy, and I like that. Yeah, yeah. It's a bit of a high to get that energy. It's cool.
It is. It is. Yeah. Been reading this book about, it's by Lynn McTaggart, and I think it's called The Power of Eight. I might have mentioned it on the show before.
I think, you mentioned that one, right?
But you know what she's doing, she's been going around the world giving these lectures, and she's a journalist who studies quantum physics and all the different quantum physics scientists and what's the leading edge of quantum physics discoveries. And she's discovered that when she does these lectures around the world and she breaks people into groups of 8, like she'll have an audience of several hundred, break them into groups of 8, and then they'll put one person in the center, and everybody in that group will put a hand on the person and will focus on, they put a person in the center, say, who that day has a really bad sore throat or they're dealing with some traumatic event in their life. Mm-hmm. And everybody will send loving energy to that person in the center. And she's getting these miraculous healings and things that are happening all over the world.
Really?
And they're also happening when she does it with virtual groups, like Zoom type groups.
Uh-huh.
You'll get the same healings that'll take place that'll literally heal things that people have been suffering with for years. And
she focuses specifically on healing. That's her modality that she really likes to get involved in.
Yeah, I mean, it's to put a focus on something that you can visibly see something change, mm-hmm. or the person in the center can report a real change taking place.
Right. Okay.
And sometimes it happens over time where maybe that person's having a real problem with their son who has autism and they're going through a really difficult time because of this and this and this. And,
right.
and then all the people in the group will focus on her son and her son's autism. And then it'll clear up. It'll change. The condition will change amazingly. And she says she now has so many anecdotal stories that she could never even write about them all. There are so many hundreds and hundreds of stories of people's lives changing. And it all comes because the focus of others onto sending loving energy for change towards another person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a whole wave of the future that we're going to, in fact, this group that I want to form for my work in life coaching is going to have that as one of the elements in it. I want to see what we can do as a group to affect change in the lives of each other and maybe in the bigger society around us too.
Well, got me wondering. I wonder if we shouldn't be doing something with the podcast with something like that. If somebody wants to, give it, any of our listeners who wants to share something that they want some positive vibes on, positive energy about.
Right.
So we
it could be done in all those law of attraction groups, mm-hmm. on Facebook.
It is. Well, you see it all the time, actually. Mm-hmm. You see people asking me, please send me good vibes because I'm dealing with such and such a situation and so forth.
Yeah.
which is good. The only thing that worries me a little bit about that is I wonder how often the person who is asking for the good vibes, for the good feelings from other people, from the energy from other people, I wonder how many of them are relying on the energy rather than trying to build their own energy and letting that energy support their own efforts. Because that's a big difference from my perspective. It's not enough to just be receiving the energy, the information, the love, whatever. Mm-hmm. You also have to be building your own. You have to be developing yourself to do that, because otherwise you become dependent on somebody else to provide your energy.
Well, maybe we learn as a group of loving individuals to care for one another, so that if we're cared for, then we do want to care for others. Sometimes when we're feeling so broken or so hurting so much, for a while we might need to receive a lot of support from others. Sure. But then we get to the place where we start to give back, and then we see, oh, that has an energy of love in it too that gives me the same good feeling when I give to somebody else.
Right.
I think I'm in a big learning curve about that myself. And maybe that's why I'm attracted to do this kind of work, is because I think I need to learn even more what it is to give to somebody else. Like in a way you're doing that by creating these podcasts. And of course, every time we speak, we're hopefully, we have that intention of bringing love to other people's lives, bringing healing, bringing whatever you want to call that energy of the positive vibrations. But, I agree that if we can only give what we're able to feel as a resource within ourselves.
Well, exactly. And that's the other piece of it, that it's about, yes, building ourselves up and working on ourselves and focusing on ourselves, but it's also about loving ourselves. I don't remember, I think it was an Abraham comment, but somebody pointed out that you really can't give energy to somebody else if you don't have anything to give. And the only way you can have something to give is if you're feeling the love about yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. It's really impossible to do it the other way around. If you try to love somebody when you aren't loving yourself, you can go through the motions. You can pretend that you are. You can say that you are. You can try to fake it till you make it. But there's really not a whole lot of love energy going there.
That's right.
It's almost sterile at that point, just because you don't have anything built up in yourself yet.
Yeah. All the work I'm doing in my life right now is revolving around my coming to the realization internally and experientially through my feelings of what it really means to love myself. Because I really feel like I've been carrying sort of like wounded parts of myself through my life, not realizing that these feelings have never been acknowledged. They talk about it a lot in psychology as your wounded inner children.
Right.
And have they gotten the love that they felt so denied of at a certain point when they were very young? When we were very young, have we gotten that love to the point where we've embraced that inner child and now we feel more whole? We feel.
It reminds me of what Wendy Dillard used to tell me. Wendy, of course, was for a long time my afternoon podcast host, 5 days a week for quite some time there. And
wow, 5 days a week.
Yeah, and she has
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was my afternoon podcast host all 5 days, Monday through Friday, from last November till around June, something like that. And it was intense. It was intensive stuff. Talking with her every day like that. It was good. It was really, really good.
I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah. But anyway, during that period of time, she would, especially toward the end of her cycle, and she has since moved on to start doing her own podcast, and I wish her nothing but the best. I'm really hopeful that she's going to be able to just fly doing it. But one of the last things she told me about was how she would have these conversations with her inner being, kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, where something would come up, and so she'd be asking questions and basically saying, okay, so what's going on here? What am I feeling? Where's this coming from? What's going on? Give me signals here. Give me clues, and start interacting. And finally realize, maybe she'd come to a realization that what she was experiencing was actually a reflection of the way her mother used to react to her when she was 12 years old or something like that, right? And so then she would kind of flip her role, so to speak, and she would play the role of her mother, consoling and calming herself down, and basically giving herself the love that her real mother never actually gave her as that 12-year-old,
Yeah,
and so she'll start talk about giving yourself love. You're basically giving yourself those strokes that you really wanted to have all along. And I thought that's a
Yes.
really cool way to do it. It's very direct, and it really does demonstrate love for yourself, because we, as human beings, we generally are really critical of ourselves. We're really very harsh. We're rough on ourselves. We don't think of it as harsh or rough.
Right.
But when you look at it from that perspective, that objective perspective, we are harsh on ourselves so much of the time. And to reverse that by saying, you know, I approve of you. I love you. I think you're doing great. I think you're pretty. I think you're wonderful. I think when you start doing that kind of thing to yourself, you start shifting the whole pattern in a huge, huge way. That's why I loved what she was saying. It was, I really appreciate it, because she was really, in a very rapid way, building up her love of herself, and that gave her so much more love to give to everybody else.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, it reminded me of, you were saying how critical and judgmental we are of each other and of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, where did that come from? And, well, obviously, if we would have had parents and teachers who were cultivating nothing but seeing the ways that they could love us into our appreciation of life and our appreciation of others, our appreciation of ourselves, then they could have theoretically have gotten us programmed into the opposite. Instead of feeling the critical, judgmental nature that we got from them, we could have gotten in accepting, loving, like you say. We could have gotten a more nurturing, accepting, loving nature. But it's been something that's ancestrally passed down, is this belief that we need to be slapped into shape. We need to be given all this criticism and judgment, and that therefore it'll toughen us up.
Plus also the parents and teachers who didn't give us the treatment that you were saying that you wish they had given us were themselves treated the same way.
That's
who were,
what I'm saying.
by their own teachers, were also given the same treatment. So, like you said, it's ancestral. Yeah. It's this long stream. It's a chain of abuses that have gone on throughout the generations.
And we take it for granted that that's just the way children. I mean, the whole thing that I think Abraham was talking about. Do children have to be raised with that kind of parenting? No, they don't have to be raised that way. And so there's an entire other way to raise children. And now I did the same exercise in this book I was using called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, where Debbie Ford asks you to write all the things you wish somebody would have told you when you were a kid. What do you wish the messages you would have gotten from parents and teachers? Just get out a piece of paper and start writing. What would you like them to have said to you?
Yeah.
And then what would you like right now in your life? Somebody who's in your life, say your spouse or your best friend or other people, what would you like them to be saying to you right now? And you write a page on that. And it's really interesting because I did both of those things, and it's very, like you say, it's revealing the messages we wish we were getting. So then what would you like to be saying to yourself? Write a page on that. What are the messages you wish you were telling yourself more?
And what I loved about the Wendy Dillard method was, don't just what would you wish, tell them to yourself. Actually say them. Express to yourself what it is you've been wanting to hear. If you've been wanting to hear for 4 decades or 2 decades or 10 years or whatever, that you are an attractive human being, well, tell yourself that. If you want people to think, or if you want your mom to say to you that you have a beautiful smile, tell yourself you have a beautiful smile. If whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, but do it for yourself. Tell yourself that. In fact, that's why I like the mirror exercises so much, because not only are you telling yourself stuff, but you're looking in the mirror. You're looking in your own eyes when you do it. Right. And when you look in your own eyes, it's almost like there's a boomerang effect. I don't know what else to call it, where you send the message and the message comes back to you. And you send the message and it's an instant kind of thing that you're responding to and receiving. And it's not like there's a delay. There's no delay. It's like bang. It's like every time you say something, you feel this thing coming back to you, not harmfully, not painfully, just instantly. You're getting this really, really quick thing. I give out love, and the love is right there. Just because you're looking in your own eyes when you do that. And it's a little disconcerting at first if you're not used to it. It's a little uncomfortable. But when you get used to it, when you do it often enough that it feels a little bit more normal, whoa, it's quite a feeling. It's almost indescribable.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading some psychologist who's one of those popular trendy psychologist who's written a bunch of books, what he was saying, talking about some client, and he was saying, obviously she hasn't done enough of her mirror work.
Oh, really?
and you were saying, yeah, it's kind of an accepted thing out there that it's a really good idea to do mirror work because it's a place where you really come face to face with yourself.
You do. And the thing about the mirror work is when you're first looking at yourself in the mirror, all of a sudden you have one choice. Do I continue to interact with myself or do I flee as fast as possible? That's really what the first thought is, like, oh God, do I really have to do this? It's so creepy.
Yeah, creepy.
But you get past that after a few days, and when you get past it, it becomes a very, very different experience. That's
still
like,
do it?
not as often as I probably should, in the sense that I would get more benefit out of it if I did it daily, but I do it fairly frequently. And I may actually get to the point where I'm doing it daily again. In fact, I'm also realizing this is something about me, I think. I think I actually do better if I don't regiment myself. So, like, the regimentation would be do it every morning. Get up every morning, and the first thing that I do is I do the mirror work. And I was doing that. I did that for about 45, 50 days, something like that. But the regimentation of it became uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to... Well, yeah, exactly. So I've been trying to learn to just take an opportunity. I have the mirror right next to the door of my office, for leaving the office. So I can always see that mirror every time I'm leaving the office. And I'm trying to remind myself, whenever I see the mirror, just stop and give myself 10 seconds of love. So now it's not something that I'm locked into. I have to do this every morning at 7 a.m. or whatever it is, Yeah. No, it's just I do it because there's the opportunity. It takes just a few seconds, and then I can go on with whatever it is I was doing. And I haven't got to the point where I can do that consistently, but that's where I'm trying to get to. Because if I can do stuff like that, not just mirror work, but any kind of, affirmations or
meditation.
I do have one thing. Yeah, meditation. That's good. I have something that I pop up on my screen. Now, this is a little regimented, but I let the computer do the regimenting. I have a little thing that pops up on my screen at 1 p.m. in the afternoon every day, and I'm usually near my computer when that happens, and it says, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the Neville Goddard phrase. It's a reminder, like, just take a moment to think about something that you want to come into your life and feel good about it. Just for 10 seconds.
That's
and
great.
Then it comes, and there are some days where I'm in the middle of something that's like, go away, I don't have time for this. There are other times where I say, oh yeah, good idea. Let's just take that 10 seconds and do that. So I'm trying to do more and more stuff that it becomes part of my daily routine rather than something I segment into one part of the day.
Yeah, I heard it from my sister-in-law yesterday. She's a life coach, and she was telling me there's an app you can get for your phone that's called Calm, C-A-L-M, I guess, and another one I think called Headspace, and they're both meditation apps. And what they do is they remind you, and when they take you into a meditative state, and then little gongs and things happen that during the meditation that bring you back to your breath, for example. Like that, they get you started on following, the inhale and the exhale, but then they'll bring you back. And they're trained, the whole thing is to train you into this place of where you actually are meditating and getting a beautiful experience from it. That's what I'm doing now with these alpha meditations with my clients, is I take them into the state, but I literally help them count their breath so that they really spend some time making sure that they're going into that place. And it's not just like, now just follow your breath. You actually guide them through counting and everything into it. And then you remind them throughout the entire hour of the session to go back to their breath at various times.
So an alpha meditation, give us a little description. What exactly is an alpha meditation, and what's the purpose of it? Why do you do it?
Well, it's to get you into the witness state. It's to get you into the place where you are the breath itself is a tremendous vehicle, as we've talked before, to get you into a meditative state. And if you follow your breath, it has in I guess it's Hindu tradition, it has what's called prana. Prana is literally the divine force. You might say it's the spiritual energy of source. And when you're connecting to the spiritual energy of source, it's the first thing that comes into the body when we're born, and the last thing when we leave our body is our breath. And all the different spiritual traditions I've studied teach that the breath is where literally God lives. That's that's spirit moving in our bodies and filling every cell. And when it leaves, that body is just ready for the ground. It's a whole other experience.
Yeah, no kidding. That's an understatement.
And so that's how powerful the breath is. So if you spend time with your breath, you will get into this wonderful place. And that's what the alpha state, you follow your breath into the alpha state. You begin to notice your body more and more. And then you go into what's called the third eye, the ability to take your focus into your pineal gland, into your spiritual center. And from there is a natural way. That's what happens in meditation. If you do meditation, there's a point at which you go into this place where you're the witness and you're detaching from, you might have a tremendous pain going on in your body, but if you're in the witness state, you're not so much necessarily feeling that pain in the same way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was experiencing that for 3 days. I had this tremendous pain in my abdomen area. It was caused by my psoas muscle. And so when I would do my alpha meditation, I had it on a MP3. And so I'd be guided into this. And that pain would be there the entire hour. And it would be horrendous pain, like I've never even known pain could be.
Wow.
But I got detached from it. And after 3 days of doing it, it never came back again. Not the same way. Now, I'm not saying it might not come back again, but by just observing it from the witness state and going to the witness state through my breath, that's called alpha induction. You go into this alpha brainwaves, and so you're beta, supposedly, I guess, is the brainwaves you're in when we're just rushing around. It's getting near the hour here.
Well, we got a few minutes left. We started a little bit late, so we're okay.
Okay. So, that alpha state is something I'm just learning about. Although I've been practicing meditation all these years, I still feel like because I'm learning to do it with clients, to take them through what's called this alpha induction. And it's really cool. You can literally change things in your life just by going into the alpha state and then observing. Like if you recall an incident, say you had a run-in with your spouse and something really angry exchange happened, or you went through some really sad event, and you recall that event, and you get in touch with that sadness again or that anger again, but you're in this place of meditation and following your breath, and you're just witnessing that anger. It can dissipate, and it can then transform in a way that it will not necessarily come up the same way again in your life. And that's how we can truly transform, because these feelings, once they're felt, we begin to change on fundamental levels, because that's what feelings do. They bring us back in alignment with source. And when we let them be felt in our bodies from the place of observing them from source, then they begin to, our consciousness begins to change in really fundamental ways. Mm-hmm. Right. That's why I'm doing this kind of work, because I think it is the key to fundamental change.
And it's making exciting. A difference, it sounds like, from what you're saying. It's making a difference in your life.
I can already see it changing me, and I've had other people tell me that they don't think I'm, quite as crazy as I was.
Still crazy after all these years, but not quite as crazy.
Not quite, yeah. They said a couple layers have peeled off of your onion,
Yeah, that's right.
You got a lot more to go, Tom, but you don't seem as crazy as you did last week.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
It is a compliment. It's a real compliment.
Oh, this is great.
Especially if I can notice it, that's when it feels really good.
Yeah, exactly.
If I feel happier, that's really nice. If
that's when you know when you're making progress.
If I feel more at ease, I mean, it's like we want organic change. I want change that I know happened. It's not like. It's not like Band-Aids and that wound is never healed. You're actually healing the wound. You're doing it from the inside out. That's true. Therefore, you know that change is going to be lasting.
Well, this has been great. The only sad part is that we're drawing to a conclusion here, but we'll pick us up next week. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks, Walt.
And we hope that you'll join us all next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Best song ever.